We're going to talk about social inequalities in general. Sometimes social inequalities come in relation to race, in relation to gender, in relation to socioeconomic status, which means our financial means. But a lot of times they happen in two ways, either by prejudice or discrimination. I would argue that the vast majority of us are not discriminatory. We don't act out in blatantly cruel ways towards each other. But I would also argue, I would also hypothesize that we struggle with being prejudicial. We don't necessarily always say it, but we might think it. We don't necessarily always stop and think, where did these ideas come from? We don't necessarily always stop and go, well, wait a second. Is it inherently fair for me to have this idea about someone or a group of people? We talked about this at the very beginning of sociology, that there needs to be a commitment to breaking down our assumptions. There needs to be a commitment to being willing to be wrong. There needs to be a commitment to thinking through how our behaviors impact others. And again, like I just said, what is fair? That's a critical thinking term, right? That idea of fairness. When prejudice and discrimination end up on a larger scale in society, it's an oppression. The prejudicial or discriminatory treatment gets built into, it like seeps into institutions themselves, the education institution, the medical institution. A lot of times, and those are just a couple of examples, government, others, so on and so forth. A lot of times the behaviors and the treatment and the assumptions that are made on behalf of, individuals or small groups, when institutions are being built and updated and run, who has power, those kinds of thoughts can kind of sink into the way that the institution itself runs. And so this is kind of hard to take a look at, right? Because we don't always in society want to act like things are inherently unfair. We want to act like we get what we earn. And so that's the other term that I want to discuss, two more terms. And so the first one is equality. That idea that everybody gets an equal amount, right? An equal distribution of resources. And so sometimes you've seen images like this. Maybe it's kids at a baseball field trying to see over a fence and they have different sized crates, something along those lines. Maybe people trying to pick apples out of a tree. So equality means everybody gets the same thing. But then there's also this other word, hopefully you've heard of it, it's kind of turned into a buzzword, equity. Equity means you get what you need. And the ironic thing is, look at the image. On the equality side, sure, everybody's got an equal sized stool, but they can't reach that top shelf of books. Equity, when everybody gets what they need, everybody can reach that top shelf. It actually creates equality. This is the heart and soul of sociological learning, in my opinion. This is what is transformative to all of us as individuals. If we can get ourselves to open our hearts, to open our minds, to open the possibility of really taking a fresh look at the way that society operates and look at the ways that we inadvertently contribute to some of the unfairness and look at the ways that we possibly could make a difference.